The committee will now come to order. We're coming together at a very important time for the Postal Service, where postal workers just successfully delivered ballot mail during a busy election season and are now ramping up for a peak holiday season. And Postmaster General shared some numbers for the election mail. I think you'll probably talk about in your testimony here today, but certainly a very busy time. And I certainly appreciate Postmaster General DeJoy for being before us here today to answer questions about the Postal Service operations, finances, and its services to the American people every day. One key issue we'll discuss today is the Postal Service's proposed service changes, which are currently under review by the Postal Regulatory Commission. We will continue to examine these plans and their potential impacts on constituents, as well as their implications for Postal Service finances. The Postal Service connects Americans everywhere, delivering critical mail like prescription drugs, Social Security checks, rent payments, small business packages, and the list goes on. Americans rely on the Postal Service every day, so it's critical that we understand its plans for service, operations, and finances. Our last hearing with the Postmaster General was in April, where we discussed the significant nationwide changes the Postal Service has begun making to its operational network. These include plans to consolidate facilities and reduce truck trips and other changes as to how mail is delivered. These changes will have raised concerns about service quality and cost effectiveness, particularly in rural areas like Iron Mountain Processing Center in my home state of Michigan. At our last hearing and afterward, my colleagues and I urged you to, Postmaster General, to pause and further study these changes before moving forward to fully understand their impacts on the service and cost. As a result, the Postal Service paused a number of facility consolidations until January of 2025. The Postal Service also requested an advisory opinion from its regulator, the Postal Regulatory Commission, to further study these changes. I think this is a positive step to fully understand the impacts through a transparent public process. However, since our last hearing, the Postal Service has also announced new changes, including changes to its service standards, which dictate the speed of mail delivery. Members of Congress, including members of this committee, have continued to raise questions about these changes and about the service impacts. 2 years ago, I led the passage of the Bipartisan Postal Service Reform Act, the first major reforms to the Postal Service in over 15 years. This legislation set the agency on a more stable financial footing, providing over $50 billion in financial relief over 10 years. The Postal Service is not on the brink of financial crisis, but it does need to make careful decisions about how it moves forward. And while the Postal Service is making changes intended to save cost, questions certainly remain about tracking actual cost reductions and the potential for service cuts that also impact the bottom line. Above all, the Postal Service must continue to focus on its public service mandate to deliver to each and every American. And that's why we're here today, to ensure the Postal Service remains accountable to Congress and the American people. The members of this committee and other senators I've heard from are certainly looking for a very open discussion. Mr. DeJoy, thank you. Thank you for being here today, for answering members' questions, and I look forward to a robust discussion.